one more thing I want to tell you about before we dive into the podcast. If you want your life transformed in 2023, if you want to go from where you are now to where you want to get, message me. Let me know. Go to davidnurse.com. Check out the info for this. This is the transformation, the High Achievers Transformation Group. I have been blessed to help over 2,000 people, NBA players, coaches, CEOs, everyone transform their life, and I can absolutely help you get there. Whether it's something you want in a relationship, in your business, in your mindset, something you are not doing that we will unlock, give you the game plan, give you the blueprint, and help you transform your life in 2023. Please message me. All right, now, time for the show. You are about to get your mind blown.
Isn't it crazy how there is no formula for selling a lot of books? Like, there really is no formula.
Dude, there's not. I remember a friend of mine was asked to endorse this book that came across to him, and he was like, ugh, I don't know, it looks dumb. And it ended up being this book, it was like The Boy Who Came Back from Heaven or something, or Heaven is for Real. Sold like 10 million copies. And when they sent it to him to endorse, he was like, ugh, no thanks. And then it was like, rocket ride. So yeah, it's kind of like, we talk about this, you and I, like, you have to take your shot, and like, the ones you don't take are definitely going to miss. You just don't know which one's going to hit, but none of them will hit if you don't try. And so with books, it's the same way. Like, you can do everything you can to create an idea that helps people and is geared in research and is applicable and sticky and all the things, but you don't know what's going to get the rocket ride. Like, in the same way that like Bon Jovi didn't want to put Living on a Prayer on their album because he hated the song. And now it's their best-selling song of all time. So I think it's true across most industries.
Yeah, I mean, I just had Pat Lencioni on the podcast, and his was the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and like, it's how you don't put negative things in there, and they like, but then some things just hit. It's just so hit or miss. Like, there's even no formula for like, how do I get the best shot at the New York Times? Like, there's
there's no formulas.
I really think the New York Times is a bunch of old ladies sipping tea, just deciding like, you know what, let's put this book on there. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no formula for most of this stuff. It's so true. Yeah. But that's just one of those where you're like, but you keep going. Like, you didn't know that the Nets would have a new coach that cleared house, and then you're out. Like, you don't, and you're like, all right, well, let's do the next thing. Like, what's the next thing? Like, you're always doing the next thing.
Yeah, you just keep going. And you had a post. I loved it. It's one of my favorite posts of all time, and I'll probably get it wrong, but it was like, you were sitting in a room by yourself, and you're like, I had this planned out where there's going to be so many people in this room, and you're like, 1 or 2 people showed up. That was incredible, man.
It was brutal, dude. I brought all these Skittles because I'd made a joke about Skittles, and I printed up all these like quizzes because I wanted like funny quizzes. I brought like 1,000 stickers to give away. Yeah. And I sat there for like 90 minutes, and 2 people came in. One was a friend who came in to be like, hey, don't cry. And the other one was some random dad who was like, my daughter reads your blog, I don't. And then he left. I don't even think he took a sticker. And I had my friend take a photo in the moment because I was like, I want to remember this because this is reality. And we often don't share that part of it. So I was like, I want to remember it. I'm going to share it. And then it was fun. It was like 12, 13 years later, I was in that same building, but I was on stage in front of 8,000 people. And it was the same exact building. And they didn't know the 13 years ago, like, I'm sitting in that room, like, dude, I was wearing a shirt I had printed myself for my blog. Like, dude, it was every degree of like I'm doing on the, like, you're on the hustle, and like, you're like, I'm going to do it. It was you like making basketballs from China that have a white line on them. And like, your loading vehicle is probably like a Civic. Everybody has that moment.
So, one of my favorite feelings in the world, it's getting a great night's sleep on cozy and comfortable sheets and blankets. And for me and my wife, that is absolutely Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth, more comfortable than cotton. It's made from bamboo. And get this, it has been featured on Oprah's favorites list. Favorites list for the last 4 years in a row. They even give a 100-night sleep test. It means you can try them out for 100 nights, and if you don't like it, you get fully refunded. It's high quality, so cozy, so comfy, you won't want to get out of bed. And now I teach people to just jump out of bed. But with Cozy Earth, you ain't going to want to get out of bed. And what they're doing for my listeners is incredible. Never been done before. 40% off. Are you kidding me? 40% off. If you go to Cozy Earth, COZY earth.com, and enter the code DavidNurse40 at checkout, that is DavidNurse40, you will get 40% off the best covers, the best sheets you've ever had in your life. Trust me, you will absolutely love these. You'll probably be sleeping in the next time I do a podcast. Check them out, CozyEarth.com, DavidNurse40 for your special discount.
But you know what I love about that? And I'm going to come back to the start of it here, but I think we've started at such a great point. I want to keep going on this is like you are the epitome of the 10 years to become an overnight success. You said 13 years right there, but it's not like you just came from anything as like, well, he climbed Mount Everest blind with one leg and now he can go speak on this. It's you've developed this and you've taken lumps and you've done it when there's been two people in the room.
Dude, and they're not over. That's the thing. They're not over. Like, so like you're still gonna, people are always like, how do you stay humble? I'm like, don't worry. There's plenty of ways. So like, you're going to have moments where you go and they don't, like you do a book signing. And I always joke, like, if you want to stay humble, do a book signing. Because you're like, somebody will come up with like a $9 coffee and go, I don't know, $8 for your life's work seems a little pricey. And you're like, you're drinking a coffee that's more expensive than the thing that took me 3 years. And so, and then like, they'll do an announcement over the loudspeaker that's like, if anybody's looking for the Jon Acuff book signing, he's over by the magazines. Like as if there's 100 people who are lost in the bookstore that just can't find you. So yeah, like but also like, you want those things because it also indicates that you're growing. Like if I stay doing the same thing again and again, so I'm going to have moments where it's like, wow, that was humbling. That was, like I learned a lot there. I tried it. It didn't work. Like, and I'm also always trying to do experiments where you go, okay, I tried this thing and it didn't work, but I'm glad I tried because I learned from that. And if I don't, I get really, really stuck in only doing the same things I know how to do. And I get really afraid to do new things. So I have to kind of force myself to do new things and experience those moments or I get stuck.
Have you always had that? It's the resiliency and the consistency because most people have that and they'll give up. How'd you develop that?
No, I was until like 34. I had none of it. I was like bouncing from job to job. I was like, you're what, 35? Is that right? Yeah. So if I'm your age, I've been kind of doing stuff for a year at this point. But for me, no, it was, I was like the king of wasted potential. So the story I sometimes tell is like college, first semester of college, I get a 2.4. I'm going to lose all my scholarships. I needed a 3.0 average. And so I had to like reinvent things over Christmas break. I came back, I got a 4.0 and ended up with a 3.0001. And I saved my scholarships, but it's also the dumbest way to get a B average, to like not try and then kill yourself on the other. Like it's so like up or down. So sometimes I talk about that. Like I have two speeds, neutral or nitro. Like my daughter said to me one day, my youngest daughter, she said, Dad, you're either OCD or no CD. You're either all the way in or none of the way in. And I was like, dang, that's real. So I've learned over the years, I'm 46 now. It's been a 10-year process of like, oh, if you try this, it works. Oh, if you do this other thing, it doesn't work. Like, oh, I'm naturally negative by personality, but I work hard at positivity because I've tried both ways, and the results of positivity are way more fun than the results of negativity. So I'm like, okay, well, let's just like, I'm pessimistic by nature. I'm sarcastic. And so, no, I work really hard to not be those things because I see the reward that comes with it. And I know how my life is with it versus without it.
That's so good to hear, though. Like you're naturally negative. You remind me a lot of our mutual friend, John Gordon. He was kind of bouncing around to things until like 34 years old. And then and he's naturally negative and he'll speak about that. I think people need to hear that because it's like, most people think, well, I'm a negative person, so I have to be like that. Like what are some
think that like you have to come out of the womb positive. Like you came in the maternity ward, you were like super positive and you've just been a ray of sunshine since. No, I don't. We're going to say, what are some of the ways I've worked on positivity?
Or some things you do, like maybe some staples. Maybe it's just staples in your day that you're like, these are things that I really like, really help me when I'm having these days when I wake up and I don't really want to do anything at all.
Yeah. I mean, one, I check my schedule, not my feelings. So like if I've scheduled, I have something I need to do, well, it's happening. Like I don't say to my feelings, do you feel like doing this today? Because 99 times out of 100, they can be like, nah, you know what? I don't feel like doing that. I'm like, okay, I guess we're not doing that. So, but like if I schedule that today there's a run happening, well, it's on the calendar. I asked the schedule if we're doing it. Turns out we're doing it. So we're doing it. So like versus going, the joke I do is like, at least in Nashville where I live, which is where you'll eventually move, because that's what people in LA do is they eventually figure out to move to Nashville. No state income tax, dude. Come on. You're lighting like half of every dollar on fire. Let's go.
Totally.
So yeah, I'm speaking truth. Like everybody lives out here now. So one of the things I'll think about, like with running, let's just take running as an example. I'll go, in the spring, it's too rainy to run. Nashville gets more rain than Seattle on volume. We just don't brag about it constantly. Man. Number two, I'll go, well, the summer's too hot. It's hot in the South. It's too hot to run. The fall, it's too dark. The winter, it's too cold. I can do that all year long versus going, no, today, like yesterday, I told myself on this schedule that I'd go run today. So I'm going to go run today. And that's what I do. So that's one. The other thing is I surround myself with what I call soundtracks, which is just my phrase for a repetitive thought. So like I'm looking out the window of my backyard right now on this podcast, and like I'll grab one that's on the wall. This one just says, I love writing this book. That's all this card says. And I wrote it on November 10th, 2019. So this one is 2 and some change years old. Why did I write it? I wrote it because even though I have what some people might deem as a dream job, writing books, speaking, amazing things that I get to do, I feel so fortunate. It's still hard. Like writing books is hard. Like you have to fight a million ego traps. You have to like wrestle with so many things. And sometimes I forget that I love writing. So it might seem silly to somebody to go like, you needed a note to remind yourself you love writing. Like, yeah, I do. And I've looked at it thousands of times in the last 2 years. And it helps me remember like, oh no, this thing is a real gift. And it's a real honor that like the me who had never written a book 10 years ago, 12 years ago would be so thrilled today that I get to spend some of a weekday. Like I used to have to write at 5 a.m. before work started. Used to have to write at the lunch break in my car. Like now I get to do that in the middle of the day. Oh man, that's so great. Let's remember that. I love writing this book. So that's another thing I do is kind of remind myself of the things that I know are true for the moments where I don't feel like they're true.
Okay, so question for you. What sounds better, paying $7,000 for a huge sauna that you probably don't have space for, or $599 for one that you can transport and take wherever you want? I think the answer is pretty obvious. HIGHERDOSE. Let me introduce you to that name. I have been using it for a couple years now, actually, and it's literally my secret to taking high-powered naps. It's a sauna I can have in my apartment. I don't have room for a big, massive sauna, but I do for HIGHERDOSE. And what are the benefits of HIGHERDOSE sauna blanket? You kind of wrap yourself up in a cocoon, and I'm telling you, like my naps, like 10 to 15 minutes off the charts. Enhances deep relaxation, improves circulation, promotes glowing skin, burns calories, encourages detoxification, pain relief, higher energy levels, reduces stress, promotes better sleep, everything that a sauna does, but in a blanket. That's very affordable. That you can put anywhere. HIGHERDOSE. Yeah. Check out HIGHERDOSE.com. Code for you for listening to this podcast, David15, for 15% off. HIGHERDOSE.com. Let me know how you're liking it, how your naps are going, or just chilling in it. It's amazing. Go check it out. Get your sauna on today.
Love that. And your book is phenomenal. Soundtracks. I've listened to it. I don't read books. I've listened to it. So it's kind of, it's perfect.
Tell me honestly, what speed? What speed you do? What
1.5. I'm always 1.5. I feel
Even
like
me, I'm fast. I talk fast, dude.
You do. Yeah. For some reason I focus better when I actually have to focus as opposed if it's just 1 point. I don't know why that is. And anytime that
I love it.
It pops up in the car when I plug it in, and Taylor, my wife, will be with me. She's like, "What are you doing? Slow that down. There's no way." So, anyways.
It gives other people panic attacks. I listen. Yeah. I'm at a 1.6 right now. That's my average. Because, dude, and if you ever go back to 1, it feels like you could forget it. So the next one for your list, put Bono's book on your list. if you
Bono's
haven't done
book.
that one yet. It's
Haven't
called
done it.
Surrender, and it
Okay.
is everything you want it to be. It is so like, text me when you listen to it, because you're
I
gonna be
will.
like, I can't believe you brought this into my life, dude. It is so, it's Bono telling the story of U2 and his faith and their songs and the struggle, like, and he sings in between. Like, dude, oh, I can't wait for that text. You're gonna send me that text probably in
Okay.
like a week.
That will be the next one that I do. That will. And I got a couple more from you to do after that. So
So
like
good,
I'll probably be
so
thinking
good.
about you every single day for the next month and a half.
Get ready. The Bono one, I still have that fast, but it's so good, dude. You're gonna love it.
Hey, all right, that is it. And I like how you're at 1.6 speed. I'm at 1.5. I might have to outdo you and go to 1.7. See if I can push it. Just
6-minute abs. Well, what about 5-minute abs? Yeah.
And so let's talk on soundtracks. I think the concept of it is so good, so powerful. Music in itself, obviously correlated to music, is the most powerful, influential thing there is in the world. If I could be one thing, it would be a musician. They have so much influence, but it is our thoughts are so influential over who we are. What are some soundtracks like? I know you have something in soundtracks is like the solution to stop overthinking is to stop thinking. Can you just tell us some of your favorite soundtracks that you have personally, or some of your favorite soundtracks that you share with others to help them make these type of mindset shifts?
Yeah, so that was the kind of the starting point. Was most resources say the solution to overthinking is to stop thinking, and that's not the solution at all. You're designed to think. Like, why would you ever
Yeah.
turn off this amazing thinking machine you have? I joke, like, it's one of the things that separates us from the animals, like that and Netflix. Like, we're thinking machines. Like, every blue jay has built the same exact nest ever. There's never been a blue jay that was like, I think I'm going to do a townhome instead. I think I'm going to have, like, maybe I'll do like a ranch. Like, no, they always build the same things because they can't change. They can't think like us. And so the solution isn't to stop thinking. The solution is to what I do: retire broken soundtracks, get rid of the broken ones that are in the way, replace them with new ones, the thoughts you want to have, and then repeat those new ones so often they become as automatic as the old ones. So it's retire, replace, repeat. So some that are really, really simple, and they don't have to be catchy. Sometimes people are like, oh, I'm not a creative person. They don't have to be like that at all. I mean, I love writing this book as a soundtrack. Another one I have on my wall, I'll just pull it off, is Ask for More. That's a soundtrack for me. I found myself undervaluing my work in negotiations, and I needed a soundtrack to remind myself that my work had value. So I wrote Ask for More on August 27th, 2020. Again, that's 2 years old. Yep. And it's helped me a ton. So I know going into negotiations, I'm going to ask for more because that's a soundtrack. But they can be another one, one that I say a lot around our house is fear gets a voice, not a vote. Fear gets a voice, not a vote. What does that mean? I don't like when people say you can be fearless, you can be fearless, you can be fearless. You're going to have fears because you're going to new levels. Like when I spoke to 10 people the first time, I had 10 person size fear. I'd never done that before. Like that was really challenging, but I did it. I worked on it. I tallied like you teach, and I got over it. But guess what? Then when I went to 100 people who had 100 person size fear, but guess what? I got over that. 1,000 person size fear, 10,000 size person size fear. So fear is there, and you can actually learn from it. It has a voice, but it doesn't get a vote. It doesn't get to sit at my table and go, you don't get to do that. I decided you don't do that. It doesn't get to bang a gavel and be in charge. So that's another one. Another one for me is fear comes free, hope takes work. Fear comes free, hope take work mean you never have to go look for fear. Fear will find you. Hope you have to work at. Hope you have to be deliberate about. Positivity you have to be deliberate about. And so for me, that's a reminder of, okay, today, how did I work for hope? How was I deliberate about that? I was talking to somebody about that the other day about like staying positive. How do we stay positive? Was that part of it's what you feed yourself all day? If you like bathe in negative social media, negative news, and negative talk for 12 hours, don't be surprised at the end of the day you feel negative. That'd be like if you didn't eat anything for an entire day, and at the end of the day you're like, so weird that I'm hungry. It's really not that weird. You didn't eat today. So like if all you eat is negativity all day, don't at the end of the day be like, it's so weird that I feel negative. It's not weird. It's not weird at all. Like you engorged yourself on negativity. And so for me, I remind myself, okay, fear comes free, hope takes work. Where am I putting in work today for hope, for positivity, for motivation, for inspiration. Because again, I'm not a naturally positive person, so I have to work at it. And my friend Colleen Berry always says, like, think about it like a car. Like some steering steers really to the left, and you have to work hard to get it back on the road. Some cars barely steer to the left. My car steers very much to the left, so I have to do a lot of things to get it back on the road and be like, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. And so tricks and tools and things like that help me kind of keep the car on the road.
Yeah, dude, those are all so good. And you paint beautiful pictures with your stories and analogies. And I remember when I listened to soundtracks, the Ask for More had a big impact on me. And I think you were telling the story of like how you were so fearful that they wouldn't give you the consultancy job, and they ended up giving you more than you could have imagined in there, but you were fearing it the whole time. I might be butchering that story.
Here's the problem. I'll give a specific example. So entrepreneurs, because you're an entrepreneur and you have a small business, money's different. When you deal with a big company, it's not their money. The person, like, it's the company's money. But an entrepreneur, when somebody goes, it's going to be $250 for this, you're like, ooh, that's my money. I got to be careful. Yeah. When you deal with a huge company, it's a budget item on something. They're not going like, no, like, and so like, it's helpful to remember like, oh, that's right. The things I do have value. And especially if you do a job that's unique where you're, sharing ideas, you're doing something with a book. I think it's always good to remember like, no, let me figure out that. I remember I told people, like, if you say you're an entrepreneur, let's just hit on that for a second. One of the best questions you can ask is, what's your budget? When somebody asks you to do something, say, what's your budget? It's the 3 magic words. And especially if a friend asks you to do something for free, they go, hey, I'd love you to knock out a logo. I'd love you to do, whatever it is. Go, oh, that's great. What's your budget? Because what's going to happen is they're going to be reminded in a polite way, oh, they're a professional. They don't just do this for fun. Like, yes. It reminds them without being mean. And they're either going to tell you their budget, which often is more than you would have asked for. Awesome. Or they're going to go, oh, we don't have a budget, at which you get to say, well, thank you so much for thinking of me. Due to my workload right now, I'm not able to do pro bono work, but I really appreciate it. Like, the end versus that tension of people asking to do stuff for free.
Dude, that is so good. I need to.
But what's your budget is a soundtrack. Yeah. What's your budget is a soundtrack. Yeah. And like, again, it reminds the people, oh, that's right. Like, just because he's good at it or enjoys it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And when you, again, like, if I wouldn't, and I teach this principle to so many people, because like hairdressers will tell me, oh my gosh, like my neighbor asked me to just give them a quick trim, like, cause but that's my job and I don't want to, how do I like plumbers, everybody, people, I remember a mom told me, yeah, I had somebody say, hey, since you've already got 2 kids at home all day, could you watch my kid? I was like, oh, I didn't know I was running a daycare. That's amazing. Like, and they disguised it as a play date. Could my kid have a play date with your kid for 4 hours? It's a long play date for 4 hours, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like, let's just call it what it is. That is an illegal daycare you're asking me to run. So no, I don't, I'm not doing that. So I just find that little things like that again can often fit on the size of a note card, help me kind of navigate my way through life.
Dang, John, that's so good, man. I think about that too. Like, if they have a son, hey, can you look at my son's shot in basketball and come give him a quick lesson? Yeah, because that's what I want to do my whole day, is do that for free.
Yeah. And that's where you go, okay, well, I don't have coaching spots right now. And it reminds you, oh, that's right. He's a professional. Like, oh, I forgot. Yeah. And the other thing is that, like, if you're really trying to be high performing, you don't have a okay and a amazing. You have amazing. So like when you give a speech, if somebody says to you, hey, David, it's just 7 minutes, just show up and knock it out. Dude, that you won't show up and half do it, because that's not how you're wired. Yes. You'll put a world of effort into that 7 minutes. So like, I joke about this, but I'm dead serious too. Like, it's hard for me to write our family Christmas card, because I want it to be dope, because I'm a writer. So like when my wife is like, hey, just knock out the Christmas card, I'm like, oh, okay. I got to really get into this. So I have to remind myself of, like, if somebody says it's quick, it's a tweak, it's whatever, I have to go, wait a second. What speeds do I have? I have amazing or not at all. So I need to say, no, thank you. Even though it seems easy, it will, like, I'm going to write the heck out of that and try my best. So I'm going to have to pass, because I won't be able to just phone it in, because I don't want to phone it in. And that doesn't help you in the long run if I phone it in. And so I think about that all the time.
So powerful, man. I want to get to the audiobook that you did with your daughters, your new playlist. I think it's just really powerful just to hit on the point of family soundtracks as well. You have individual soundtracks, and I love how you talk about having family soundtracks. And I think that like, one of the biggest things that I've done in my marriage is really focus on the way, the tonality of the words that I say. Like it depends. You could say the same words, but they can mean a completely different thing on how you say them. It's just kind of like think about it. If you sang a country song, you're going to feel probably like, sad and depressed, or it could be the same words as an upbeat pop, or it could be angry rap. They're the same words, but they're in how you deliver them. So I need everybody to go listen to your book, read your book. You'll get more of that for sure. But let's get to your new playlist. And this is more directed for the youth, for teenagers,
Yeah.
and but not just for them, but for parents to be able
it's
to
ultimately for parents to have the conversation. Like
to have a conversation.
So we weren't expecting to do this book. When Soundtracks, which is about overthinking and mindset, came out, there was no Your New Playlist planned. But what happened, so this was my 7th book. It was the first time I'd ever had parents say, hey, do you have a version for teenagers? That had never happened before. Like nobody ever asked that about Finish or Do Over or Start or other books I wrote. And they said, because if I could have learned how to change how I think as a teenager, it would have changed the whole arc of my life. Like I can see that if I could have controlled my thoughts about myself, about my opportunities, it would have changed who I became as an adult. And so we didn't have that. And then I remembered I spent years and years and years speaking to teenagers at youth camps, and I asked them to write down what their thoughts were about themselves. And they put them on little note cards, and it was a speech I did, and they turned them in anonymously. And I had thousands of those on a shelf in my office that I'd sat next to for 10 years. And I was reminded, oh, wait, I have examples of this. Like we can see what real teenagers. And then the third thing was we started to see broken soundtracks in teenagers. So if you're a parent, like an example would be if you hear a kid use an absolute. Like I was at a swim meet, girl gets out of the pool, she says to her mom, I'm the slowest swimmer on the team, I'll never get better. And if you hear your kid use a word like never, only, everyone, it's usually a broken soundtrack. I'm the only one who doesn't have the new iPhone. Everyone got invited to the party but me. I don't have a single friend. I'll never get to go to college. Like if you hear absolutes, that's often a broken soundtrack. And then the fourth thing was I had daughters that could write the book. I would like, if I wrote the book, it would sound like an adult trying to sound cool. Like, hello, fellow youth. Like, what is up with the lit savage? Didn't come to Air One. The hot bar is great. Don't crease the J's. Like, it would have been like that. And I was like, I can't do that. But fortunately, I had 2 really fun, great writers in my own house, Ellie and McCrae. And so they wrote the book. I wrote the intro and the outro. And that's what Your New Playlist became.
Wow. And it's such a creative way to do it too. Like I feel like your posts on social media and this book, like you just think outside the box. You think differently in that sense. And I do want to talk about the power of reaching the youth and the next generation, because that's really the only way that actual change is going to happen if they're taught at that level that they matter, that they can come over this mental health epidemic that we're in. How do you think are some ways that we can actually empower the youth? And I know you talk about.
Well, I mean, part of it's how you talk around the house. Part of it's, one of the stories in Soundtracks was that I felt really guilty doing business travel, and every time I'd go on a trip, I'd tell my kids like, I'm so sorry, I'll be gone for 3 sleeps. Like,
good.
And my wife was like, look, they don't know to feel sad. You're teaching them to feel sad because you feel guilty. So you're asking them to hold your guilt, because kids' brains have mirror neurons. They mirror what their parents are putting out. So she was like, I need you to celebrate when you leave because we're proud of you that you're doing the thing you're great at, that you're called to do. And what was interesting about that was every time I would do that and be negative about what I had to do, I was demonizing work. So we spent 18 years, 0 to 18, teaching our kids work is miserable and terrible and it takes me away from you. And then we expect them to get a job at 22. Of course they don't want a job at 22. You told them for 18 years, jobs are terrible. So a lot of it is how you as a parent talk around the house. What are the family soundtracks? A lot of it is going, okay, how do I be the one that starts the conversation, that pursues the conversations? Like as a parent, you can't be like, well, as soon as my kid wants to talk, they'll let me know. No, dude, that's never happening. Your job, You have to be the pursuer, not them. You can never wait for a teenage boy is going to be like, hey, I'd like to have a heart to heart right now, Dad, if that's okay. Can we, like, no, like, and I learned that from a guy named Jeff Henderson, who said that quantity time leads to quality time. So that's another one. Like, I'll throw the Frisbee 100 times with my oldest daughter, and maybe time 87, we'll have a real deep conversation. But the temptation as a parent, and I've done this so many times, is to like manufacture that, to go, I got a 30-minute slot. Tell me about your deepest secrets. And what? No kid is going to respond to that. No adult likes to do that. We all have friends that jump intimacy levels where you haven't seen them in 5 years, and then you see them and they're like, hey, how's your marriage? Where are things with your wife right now? And you're like, oh, hey, we barely have had a coffee together. I don't know you. Like, I certainly don't know if you're a safe person. Like, I'm not going to talk about how my marriage is. Like, I'm going to say my wife is pretty. Thank you for asking. Like, so like, I think as a parent, you have to be cognizant of things like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, man. Oh, geez. This is like the ultimate parenting podcast right here. I know when me and Taylor have kids, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. And maybe I'll just
be old. My kids are almost out of the house. I'm 2 years from empty nest, dude. Like, you're in small dog stage. Like, you're at the beginning. You're at the tiny dog stage.
And you know what your question is?
You've got the LA starter kid, which is a tiny dog.
Man. I do.
So
it really is. And I'm glad we're spoiling the dog. So I know, like, well, there is going to be cost. I swear every time an Amazon package comes, I get so excited. And then it's always for the dog.
For you.
And I'm like, gosh, this kid's going to be like, I know it is.
Hey, just tell me, your dog doesn't have a middle name, does it?
It's funny because I think it's got like 5 middle names. We keep giving like different nicknames.
No, dude, no. Pivot. We got to stick with Pivot. It's a good name.
Think about everything that can be over the top dog, and I think
you're doing that. Check.
Okay. I looked at it as you either battle it and you resent it.
Go all in. Go all in.
Either way.
Go all in. I love it.
All right. I'm going to throw you on the rapid fire hot seat. So as we wind down here, anything quick that comes to your mind, they can be short answers, whatever pops up. So I do have to ask you, as recording an audiobook is incredibly difficult. I wanted to gouge my eyes out. I can't even read my own writing. It took me 3 days, 14 hours. How was that doing it with your daughters?
Oh, it's super challenging for them. I mean, for me, I'd done them in the past and I was barely in the book. So it was super challenging. And you know how it is. Once you've said a word that's wrong, you can't help but think about the word again. And you say it again and again and again and again. So they were champs. And I had to buy them each something from Lululemon after the process. That was the reward for being in a studio and reading an audiobook, was like, we'll go to Lululemon.
Lululemon. That sounds like my carrot for a reward too. Very good. Yeah. Okay, soundtracks. What's your go-to walk on stage? About to give a powerful talk. What is your walk on stage song?
Back in Black by AC/DC. That's the only correct answer. That's the only, like, there's no other answer. Like, you should just say, what's the only song anyone should ever walk onto stage to? I'll say Back in Black by AC/DC. Why would you, what is yours? What are yours?
Mine actually it's called Colorful by Jukebox the Ghost. And I don't even know who this is. I heard this song, I was like, holy smokes, this gets you so fired up. So that's my main one. I know I need a better like go-to one where you just walk out. Like Ed Milet's.
Do they always have that? The clients have that all the time? Like,
yeah, they'll look at it.
I would be worried. Okay, they have it. That's available.
They have it. You know what is
sounds
actually
like a song you made up from like the Basque region. Like, where did you first hear that?
I think I heard it in a movie. I think I heard it in the Basque region. I think I heard it in a movie, and I was like, this is incredible. This got me hyped. But you know the song? I play it during some of the talks I give if I tell the Andrea Bocelli story. Andrea Bocelli, his song, like Contem Pintior.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. I put that at the start of the podcast now. I love it so much. It just,
it's great.
Oh, it's soothing. Okay, singing in the shower. What's your go-to song? You're singing by yourself. Is every answer going to be AC/DC Back in Black for the song?
Wouldn't it be weird if I was singing Back in Black in the shower?
I don't know.
No, I never sing in the shower, dude. I'm trying to be in and out. I'm like, let's go. Like, I'm thinking through what I have to do that day. Like, I'm in ramp up mode. So there's no singing.
That's funny. All right, best how you continue to learn and grow. Your favorite books. I know you gave us the Bono one. You also told me the Dip, Strength to Strength. Is there any other books or podcasts that you would recommend to people that you really love in the personal development space?
So I really liked recently the Bourdain book, the oral biography of Anthony Bourdain. I thought that
Yep.
was really well done. Um, it just was a really challenging look at success and addiction and hope
Yeah.
and sadness, and it covered like every range of emotion. I have for me, I have a Goodreads account, and so I try to read 52 to 60 books a year. So if anybody wants to see what I've read this particular year, Goodreads is where I keep most of those. I'm trying to think of another. I really liked Leap Over a Wall by Eugene Peterson. It's a look at the complicated life of David.
Oh,
Because you talk about somebody who had like highs and lows. That guy was the
totally.
king of highs and lows. And Eugene Peterson, I love how he writes. That would be another one that's on my list. If you're a writer, Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott is my favorite book on writing. Um, the Dip, I mentioned Seth Godin. I love that one. Um, and
So
yeah,
good.
and then I'm trying to, oh, then War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. That's the one. If you said to me, what book have you given away more than any other book other than your own? The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield is one where I'm like, this got me through not writing my book. Like, oh, I got to write a book. Let's go. So that's a go-to for me too.
Super valuable. Thanks, bro. That's so good. How do we all support, follow, stalk everything you're doing? The best places to find you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm acuff.me is my website. I have a community of people who work on goals together, acuff.me/goals, which is super fun. My podcast is called All It Takes is a Goal. And then my most recent book, Soundtracks and Your New Playlist are available everywhere books are sold.
Love it. And we didn't start off. Well, we're going to link to all that. And anybody that leaves a review or tags anything about this podcast, we're going to buy you a book. Whichever book you decide that you want, just message me. We'll buy you a book of John's. We normally start off the podcast with tell us something different about you. We started flowing, so this is a little bit
Yeah.
different. What's
Yeah, I'll
something
tell you, and I'll
different?
make it basketball themed. I'll tie it all back together. I
Yes.
once met Michael Jordan. Um, he was golfing with Dr. J and Dean Smith in Pinehurst, North Carolina, and I got his autograph on the back of a shirt. And then 4 hours later, I had changed and wanted to get his autograph on a piece of paper. And I was in the seventh grade, and I had a Nike swoosh shaved into the back of my head. And I found him in the parking lot. He was by himself, and I said, "Hey, can I have your autograph?" And he said, "Didn't I already sign you, kid?" And it devastated me. Like, he had remembered me, and he was disappointed in me. And like, there was no eBay. eBay didn't exist, so it wasn't like I was gonna sell the autograph.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
he did sign it, but first he like, and he looked at me with like the look he gave Patrick Ewing when he dunked on him in what is one of the top 10 greatest dunks of all time. Sean Kemp is probably another one on
Yes, it
Alton
is.
Lister when he did the double finger point.
Mm-hmm.
The Rain Man. You talk about somebody who like only like should have worked on his fundamentals. But yeah, that's my story. I met Michael Jordan, and he remembered me and was not happy with me, and I felt so terrible. I just
That's
remember as a seventh grader like crying on the walk back to the house. I was like, my hero hates me. Like, that totally is that's my story.
so good, man. And the last final question is we drop the mic and walk off. It can be one word, it can be a small phrase. If you were to give a piece of advice to somebody who is stuck in their situation, cannot see out of it, what is something that you can tell them to help them be unstuck, make their pivot, and lead towards their breakthrough?
That's a great question. I guess for me, one of the things that we in our family joke about, this is a joke, but I think it helps people get unstuck. We'll say, you tried nothing and none of it worked. So now
Mm.
let's try something. So if our kids say, I've got a problem, it's impossible, and go, what did you try? And they go, I didn't try anything. Well, you tried nothing, none of it worked. So now let's try something. So it's a reframe for me of like,
Yeah.
if I go, man, it's impossible to get in touch with that person for an endorsement. And you go, well, what did you try? And you go, I didn't try anything. I just am intimidated and I'm afraid. So I'm going to say it. Like, well, you tried nothing. None of it worked. So now let's try something. And so for me, if you feel stuck and you go, it's impossible to write a book, start a podcast, move to the city I want to live in, get a job, whatever, I would go, well, what did you try? And if you've got a list of 100 things you tried, we'd have a different conversation. But if you've got a list of 0 things you tried, that's actually great news, because you tried nothing, none of it worked. So now we can try something and watch it work.
Wow. Mic dropped. I really love that. I've never heard that before. So well said. Jon Acuff, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, gracing us with your presence and just the encouraging light that you are to so many people, man. Appreciate you big time.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it.